All right. Good morning, everybody. So I had to kind of cut it short yesterday. I got to almost half an hour, but I mean, we had a mass shooting this week, and there's stuff there that needs to be talked about. Uh, Not least of which is the just the try hard of the left wing media to cover for it, right? To run cover for the ideology. You've got these commentators saying things like, "Oh, Donald Trump's name was written on the rifles." Like, yeah, how's about a little context there? Because what was written on those rifles was literally the words "Kill Donald Trump." Why are you trying to gaslight me? Right? This happened in Minnesota. A transgender murdered Catholics in a state that's headed by a guy by Tim Walz, a guy whose whole political platform is transgender sanctuary state. Right? They're a sanctuary state for mental illness and illegal immigration. Um, Patrick, it's interesting that you asked the question. Uh, Patrick Brown asked the question: is there any reporting on what SSRI the shooter was on? We don't know. At least I haven't seen yet which SSRI the shooter was taking, but I dollars to donuts, he was taking one of them. I'll get back to that in a minute. I am going to talk about some SSRIs this morning because y'all, I remember having battle buddies in the Army that were trying to quit smoking and were prescribed certain medications to help them with that. And the actually, I think Mario might have had one of those. We'll have to ask him when he comes on. But the side effects included homicidal ideation. Right, that's literally listed as a side effect on some of these drugs. We'll get back to that in a minute. I want to start with this. So we're seeing it again, like we've seen before with these things. It happens, and you have people say, "Well, our thoughts and prayers are with them," right? And in fairness, I can understand how some people see how do I say this correctly? Strategically, I can understand how a certain segment need to demonize thoughts and prayers. But when they do, I find it very difficult to believe that they honestly disdain people praying. Right? Now imagine this was a excuse me. Imagine this was a mass shooting at a mosque, right? Because we've seen so many of those where some crazy old white guy with a beard goes into a mosque and just starts mowing down potential terrorists. We've seen a lot of those. But imagine for just a moment that this went down at a mosque, and all of a sudden you had imams coming out of the woodwork. Hey, thoughts and prayers. Pray for our families. Pray to Allah. Allah. Pray to Allah for our families. You think you'd hear Tim Walz coming out and saying thoughts and prayers are bullshit? No. No, because this is a specific attack. Hey, Sergeant Major says allow teachers and staff to carry their own weapons. Problem solved. 100%. Also, happy birthday, Sergeant Major. Happy birthday. y'all, let me see everybody drop a happy birthday for the old man down there. Megan says she can't get Rumble to load. That's sorry, sweetheart. That's got to be a you problem right now because I'm seeing most everybody watching on Rumble right now. In fact, 80% of the viewership right now is on Rumble. So don't know what to tell you, sweetheart. Anyway, so yes, it's my father's birthday. Hell yeah. And I hate that this is the conversation we have to be having. We have to be having on this, my father's birthday. But that's where we're at. So I've seen a couple things in the media that I want to address. There's been an active attempt by the media to downplay the fact that the shooter was transgender. We didn't hear that. We didn't learn that for several hours after the shooting happened. Although, you know, many of us speculated almost instantaneously as soon as we heard, oh, it was a shooting at a Catholic school. It was probably a troon. It was probably somebody who's lying about their junk. You know, probably somebody who's geeked up on SSRIs and super weed or whatever. You could almost write the headlines in advance, and I suspect a lot of these assholes do. Uncle Steve says, "I just thank God we have a platform that we can actually discuss it on." Yeah, hey, Uncle Steve, I'm still on YouTube. We'll see how long that lasts. I ain't gonna lie, I'm a little amazed I haven't been thrown off already. Some of the deep dives we've done. I don't know if y'all recall back around the adpocalypse, there were people being thrown off. There were people being thrown off for things they said on other platforms. But yeah, Sergeant Major points out, Mom said that the shooter was trying to transition back. Yes. I'm not sure if it. Yeah, basically, this dude was a detransitioner. Apparently, he started the process of transition. Had his name changed from Robert to Robin, and laments in his manifesto that I wish I had never brainwashed myself into thinking these things. I hadn't thought about this before, but it makes you wonder. I'd be interested to see some reporting on this. Do the SSRIs come into play before or after the diagnosis? Right? Are these kids starting off reporting some depression when they're 10, 11, 12 years old? Which, by the way, what? But you got these young kids. Are they going on SSRIs before they decide they're transgender? I don't know. I wonder this because so many of your mass shooters and transgenders are on the SSRIs. Obviously, they're going on the SSRIs before they go full murder hobo. But less obvious, I think, is the question of whether or not they get those drugs before the whole gender dysphoria thing. Okay, I'm sorry, guys. This is just killing me. There we go. Controversial says diagnosis. I don't think there's enough psychological investigation to say they're diagnosed as transgender. That's an interesting point. And there's actually, I've got I've got several clips pulled up here that I want to look at this morning. Jesus, here we go, including this one.
And is there any kind of mental health diagnosis that anyone is aware of?
There is no diagnosis that I'm aware of that I can share. I can tell you we are not aware of any state-ordered mental health commitments for this individual.
Chief, could you talk? And is there any?
Okay, we're not aware of any mental health commitments statements. Okay. We've seen the videos. Some of us have. Crowder and Temple, those guys, they beat me to the punch. By the time I heard about the video, I was out and about running errands when everything happened. By the time I cottoned on to the existence of the videos, they had already been nuked. I'm sure I could get them, but they're out there, and frankly, I don't want to see any more of them. I've seen the coverage on them, and the videos of the shooter going through his manifesto and talking about being a tranny and about detransitioning and regretting his transition and all that stuff. But for the police chief there to say, well, we're not aware of any diagnosis, etc. Really? Wait, really? We're not aware of any diagnosis, etc.? Homeboy had his name changed. Homeboy filled out paperwork to transition. So, am I to believe that my government will accept the paperwork, will accept the claim that, hey, Christopher is now Christina, and I need that on my driver's license and my passport and all my official government documentation. But we're not sure if they're trans. They say they're trans, but we're not sure if they're trans. You know what? I guarantee you, if he had been taken alive and then insisted he was trans for the purposes of going to a women's prison instead of a men's prison, then it would have been like it was chiseled in a tablet by God. Oh no, he has a right to be incarcerated with the gender he identifies with. Dad says the name change is optional. Yeah, the name change is optional, but one does not take the name change without having a reason. And unless you're committing fraud, which I'm not necessarily setting aside as a possibility, unless your intent is to defraud the government, the only reason to change your name from a man's name to a woman's name or vice versa is as part of the process of transitioning. And if I'm being honest, it seems to me like if you're doing it for the purpose of transitioning, then you are also defrauding the government. But let me get back to the thoughts and prayers thing for a minute. A lot of the criticism has been, well, shove your thoughts and prayers up your ass. These children were praying when they were murdered. Didn't do them any good. That's the prayers didn't do them any good when they were attacked. That's fair. That is a fair criticism. I've always liked the idea that God helps those who helps themselves. And that's why your congregation should be armed. I mean, that seems like a no-brainer to me. Your congregation should be armed. Y'all know I spend a lot of time out on the road driving for various projects and contracts I do, and one of I will often stop in the parking lots of churches because I mostly work not Sunday because most of the days of the week are not Sunday, and so on most days of the week, churches, the parking lot is empty. So I'll pull over in a church parking lot and get out, stretch, right, twist my hips, stretch my ankles, get up and move around a little bit because I've been sitting down too long driving the truck. And there's one on 16 on my route when I'm going from home up through Eatonton. There's a church. It's a kind of a big church, and I stop there often on that drive, and I forget the name of the place, but I stopped there the other day, and it was pouring down rain. And this is another reason I like to stop at churches when I need to get out and stretch, because it's an empty parking lot where they almost always have an awning. They almost always have an awning sticking out over the front entrance that you could drive up to, so you can pull up and have cover and get out and even though it's raining, stretch and everything. And so it was pouring down rain, so I pulled up under their awning, and I noticed there was a sign on the door with a picture of a firearm on it. And I thought to myself, oh, it's one of those. It's one of these. They're like, oh, no, we don't want guns in our church. And I walked over to read it, and it had a picture of a gun. I wish I'd have taken a photo of it. The next time I go by there, I'll try to remember to take a picture of it. And if I see anybody around, I need to get in and get my eyes on this. The sign just says, "Our firearms policy is detailed inside. Please inquire within," or something like that. Right? It doesn't say no guns in the church. It doesn't say don't bring guns in. It says we have a firearms policy and it is detailed inside. And given the area that it's in, and just some other factors, I suspect that firearms policy is, listen, if you're going to carry in the church, you conceal carry and be ready to return fire if shit goes down. Like that's the like I used to have a 10 type sign in the old studio that said what is it? Something like we recognize constitutional carry here. Judicious marksmanship is appreciated. Or no, we encourage concealed carry and we appreciate judicious marksmanship. Yeah. So it did me good to see that. But this whole thing about just hating on people for thoughts and prayers. This is Scott Jennings, actually. That's not. This is. And he's a CNN guy. Don't expect much out of the guy, but I think he did a pretty good job.
Had a negative reaction to the mayor's statements today. I think it's wrong, frankly, to vilify or attack people of faith. You said thoughts and prayers ring hollow. I think thoughts and prayers are the most solid on days of tragedy for people who live their faith every day. And I think on a day like today, particularly in a church community, there are probably people praying harder for comfort today than they have ever prayed in their life. And so I think, and I've heard others on the left today go down this line of attack against people of faith, sort of denigrating the idea that they might want to pray today. And so I think his statements were misguided. The thing that struck me today, Abby, truthfully, when I was watching this unfold, was that the two little ones that died were 8 and 10. I have 7 and 9. Those are my two youngest. They turn 8 and 10 in a few days. And we could probably sit here and argue out all the issues of faith and transgenderism and all the other things that have been raised today. But it strikes me that none of us ever want to know the terror and the absolute empty hole that will never be filled that those parents of the 8 and 10-year-old are going to feel. And I just thought maybe tonight the most useful thing any of us could do would take 10 seconds and just sit quietly and be still and be quiet and think about those families, because they are never going to be the same, no matter what we say.
They aren't.
And they keep telling us. So I think he did a great job there. And he's right. They were, the mayor was wrong to denigrate those parents and the people of the United States generally for wanting to pray over this tragedy, right? And let's one of the things we keep hearing is thoughts and prayers do nothing. You say thoughts and prayers because you don't want to do anything, because you're cowards, you're afraid to act. You don't want to act, right? Oh, like this shithead David Hogg here. You see how David. I think it's funny that David Hogg suddenly looks like Jay Strangio, and is David Hogg trying to transition to male?
Donald Trump has the power to do something about this. After Parkland, he repeatedly said, you guys are cowards. You're not going to do anything because you're afraid of the NRA. We need to do something about guns. That is what he said. And then he met with the NRA and did nothing. Why? Because he is a coward. And my message to Donald Trump is that you are a coward, sir. You are not going to do anything about this issue because you are terrified of the NRA, even though you have the power to save tens of thousands of lives. You were the strongest president in modern American history with a chokehold over your party and both chambers of Congress. You have the power to end this, but you are not going to because you're a damn coward. Donald Trump.
Because you're a damn coward. What could be, I cannot imagine a more cowardly position to hold than you, other person, are a coward for not stripping me of my authority and liberty. Because remember, this is the kid that hopped on his bicycle and rushed back to the school shooting to get himself in front of a camera. Right? This guy has made a name for himself off of having been at a school shooting that he was not at. He rushed back there to get in front of a camera. Now, credit where credit's due. Credit where credit's due. The boy has made a fortune off of that little shit stick of his. Right? I mean, I was getting shot at school before getting shot at school was cool, right? And I didn't hop on a bicycle and run back over there. I piled a bunch of kids into my 1988 Beretta and took them home and got them the hell away from the shooter, right? Even though the shooter was already detained and in custody, I started. I was Uber before Uber was cool. I was loading kids up in my Beretta and was screaming out of the parking lot. I had to tell the vice principal that I would shit down his neck if he tried to stop me from getting people out of harm's way, because it was my senior year. My baby sister was a freshman. So the first thing I did was I found my baby sister and I got her and a few more people and took them home and went back. And I just kept making runs back and forth to the school, taking people home who didn't have their own car. Getting people away from it, because fuck you. Because, okay, let me back up to, I went to Heritage High School in Conyers, Georgia. My senior year of high school was the same year that Columbine happened. That was on April 20th, right? On May 20th, a month to the day later, we had our own active shooter event. And I'll say active shooter event rather than mass shooter, especially in this case, because we didn't have anybody die at Heritage. We had a guy come in with a rifle and a handgun and start putting some rounds down. I don't remember how many people were shot. There were some people who were shot who were badly hurt. I do remember that there was one guy whose last name was Cheek that was actually shot in the ass, and I've always thought that was fucking hilarious. And I was not in the building when it happened. I was at the school. I was in the parking lot. It was first thing in the morning, so I was right where I always was first thing in the morning before class. I was having my cup of coffee and a cigarette, sitting on the trunk of my Beretta in the far back corner of the parking lot, talking to the security officer, when all of a sudden blue lights from everywhere, and I happened to have donuts with me that morning, so I cracked the joke. Blue lights coming in from everywhere. I'm like, what's going on? Did I get the last blueberry cake? And about that time, Ken was the guy's name. So he wasn't a resource officer. He was the campus security guy. So the resource officer was actually a cop. That was Dave. Dave was inside. Dave was the one that called the police in when the shooting started. And Ken and I were in the back lot, and his radio chirped, and we got the news that there was an active shooter event happening. And the principal ordered everybody in the building to evacuate to the football field. That's right. I thought it was a bad idea then. Now that I'm a skilled professional strategist and tactician with combat experience, I really think it was a bad idea. But we have an active shooter situation. The shooter is not yet contained, and our maneuver is we're going to take all of the people and corral them into a fenced, closed, open field. Right? So you got a football field with a fence around it, with one entrance and one exit. We're going to put everybody in there. We're going to put everybody in there. And that's when I went over and said, hey, fuck you. That's my baby sister, Jamie. Come on. We're leaving. We're leaving. We're getting the fuck out of here. These people are going to get you killed. We're leaving. And that's what we did. We left. That was an adventure. Now, in all fairness to those teachers at the time, mass shootings were not a big deal. They weren't something. I mean, obviously, a mass shooting is always a big deal. They weren't a common occurrence, right? For most people, for most people who haven't studied any of this, if you ask them, they probably think that Columbine was the first ever mass shooting, in the way that we understand them today. And in a lot of ways it was. And Columbine was absolutely like the starting pistol, as it were. Because prior to Columbine, there were other active shooter events that happened at public schools. Not a lot. Just like today, there's not a lot. Right? The news media would have you think that they happen all the time. There have been 5 or 6 a year for a long time. And like, I mean, I don't mean to downplay them, but it's usually 1 or 2 deaths and a bunch of injuries. I don't mean to downplay it, but I want to make sure that you understand that they're also, Patrick, I'm not sure if it's connected. Let me double check and make sure it's hooked up. But yeah, you can call in. Give me just a second. Damn it, Patrick, you broke my train of thought. Oh, I don't mean to downplay the severity of them, saying it's usually only a couple of kids. Yeah, I should be good to go, Patrick. If you want to call in. So, not to downplay it, but the fact is that they're catastrophized Yes, it's one of the worst things that can happen. Here, we got Patrick calling in.
Patrick Brown.
Morning, sunshine. I'm doing pretty good, but you are not on the air. Hold on a second. All right, let's try that again. Morning, sunshine. You are on the air.
Hey, how you doing? Hey, everybody.
I'm trucking right along. What you got, brother?
Yeah, you were talking about the Heritage shooting. Now, I went to Salem, which was across town from y'all.
Yeah.
And it wasn't funny at the time, but looking back on it now, it was hilarious, kind of like the whole cheek thing. We found out about the shooting during the first period of school that day. And I had a study hall right after the first period class, and we were in there, and obviously we weren't learning anything that day. So the teacher just put in this movie. And during the movie, somebody showed up, a parent showed up to collect their kid from class. So they buzzed down to the classroom to tell the teacher that the parent was there to pick them up. And so the little intercom system dings, and you hear the teacher's name. Well, the movie was Clear and Present Danger. And when the intercom beeped, it gets better. When the intercom beeped and the secretary, called out the teacher's name, the channel opened up for them to hear him reply. And it was the scene in the movie where they're driving up the alley and there's all the gunfire and the RPGs. And that's all the office heard was gunfire and RPGs going off. 5 seconds later, we had like 6 Rockdale County deputies bust through the door, guns drawn, ready to lay waste. And everybody was like, no, no, no. He was furiously trying to hit the pause button, and it wouldn't work.
Well, I imagine none of the cops showed up over that one because they were busy.
Well, I mean, like I said, we had some Rockdale County deputies that were at the school because they showed up, I think, at all the schools after the shooting happened to make sure that campuses were locked down. And we had, I want to say it was 5 or 6, but it was probably like 3 or 4 that came busting into the room after all they could hear on the other end was gunfire. And like I said, in that moment, it wasn't funny at all. But looking back on it now, it was like, oh, that's hilarious. The poor teacher, man. I wish you could have seen the look on his face as he was trying to hit pause on the movie because that was all they could hear.
That was, maybe an ill-advised call.
A little bit.
Well, let me. I'm gonna go ahead and kick you off there, brother. Give me a call back after I go off the air.
Copy that.
All right, later. All right. So thanks for calling in. Ma Wilbank says, yes, Rockdale sheriffs were at Rockdale High School too all day. Yeah. Yeah, this was early days. An active shooter event at a public school was not a common thing in the same way that people think of it now. Go look at the statistics on that. We'll talk about that more in the future. I'm going to go ahead and put a pin in it this morning because I'm just fatigued with the news on this one. I get tired of talking about these. I think we'll be talking more in the near future about RFK Jr. going after the SSRIs because y'all legit one of the listed side effects for these SSRIs are suicidal and homicidal ideation as a side effect. These are mind altering drugs. Let me see. I had a clip that I wanted to share where somebody mentions the mind altering. Yeah. Not this one, but this one. Yeah.
I don't feel bad for their parents. This happened at a Catholic school. There should have been no children there at all.
I don't feel bad for their parents. This dude in woman face says, I don't feel bad for their parents because it happened at a Catholic school and there shouldn't have been any children there at all. Oh, and then I had, oh yeah, let's not forget, this happened in this guy's state. Right, you remember this Jim?
Why?
Yeah, I sat in that office with those Sandy Hook parents. I've become friends with school shooters. I've seen it. Look, the NRA, I was an NRA guy for a long time. They used to teach gun safety. I'm of an age where my shotgun was in my car so I could pheasant hunt after football practice. That's not where we live today. And several things I want to mention on this is talking about cities and where it's at. The number one where the most firearm deaths happen in Minnesota are rural suicides. And we have an epidemic of children getting guns and shooting themselves.
An epidemic of children getting guns and shooting themselves. That's simply false. Child gun deaths annually are a little under 3,000. They're 2,500 on average. Gun deaths of children annually, and most of those are homicides. Somebody else killed the child. To call that an epidemic? No. They're in much greater danger of being of having their genitalia mutilated by a sociopath with a illegitimate MD license. And then of course we've got RFK Jr. talked about SSRIs.
Consider mass shootings a health crisis. And we are doing, for the first time, real studies to find out what the etiology of that is. And we're looking for the first time at psychiatric drugs. You know, these kind of mass shooting, people have had guns in this country forever. When I was a kid, we had shooting clubs at our school. People, kids, my classmates, other people, would bring a .22 rifle with their guns to school and park it in the parking lot. Nobody.
But you know, he makes a great point there. Yeah, we people in this country have had guns forever. And just like TPS report points out, 3 common denominators: gun-free zone, always stop by a gun, SSRIs. Well, you know what we didn't have before Columbine, or we were just starting to develop when we, walking up to Columbine. Mass production, mass distribution of SSRIs. You know what was not new when Columbine happened? People having guns. Right? You know what was not new when the recent rash, the last, 8, 10, 12 active shooter events have been transgenders attacking religious schools, right? The difference isn't the existence of guns. That's not the factor that's changed. The difference is the proliferation of the trans ideology and the social contagion of transgenderism, which comes with SSRIs. Because they're all some kind of, they have a baseline mental illness that tends to also have the follow-on mental illnesses, which include things like depression, and boom, there's your Prozac, your Zoloft, etc. Right? And Maul Wilbanks, that's a great question. If those numbers are an epidemic, why do we still have cars and fast food? And if it could save one life, cool. No more motor vehicles. No more motor vehicles. If it could save one life, okay, no more foreigners. No more immigrants, legal or illegal. That could save one life. If we could save one life, no more air travel. No more swimming pools. No more kitchen knives. No more 2-story buildings. No more electricity. I can do this all day. If it could save one life, shut the fuck up. Are you kidding me? No more buildings at all. Right? How many lumberjacks die trying to get you some 2x4 so you can put up a new living room? Just shut up. So, all right, guys, it's Friday. We're going into the weekend. Don't drive drunk. Don't fry bacon naked. Y'all be safe out there. Okay, join us tomorrow evening for the 2100 Saturday night deep dive special. We love you, and we will see you tomorrow.